All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're jumping straight into part two of our behind the scenes look at the creation of the Computational Legalese, or CLEAD, curriculum. Now, if you caught part one, you know we started with this massive vision to teach legal engineering. But as you can probably guess, the gap between having a grand vision and actually delivering a finished, polished product, it's huge. So today, we're going to show you exactly how we transformed raw, unfiltered chaos into a streamlined educational product. By the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly the level of rigor built into the lessons you're about to take. Here is the factory floor plan for today. We'll start with the educational supply chain, dive into our raw materials, step onto the floor of the WIP dithering factory, reveal the finished goods, and finally, get ready for another run. Section 1. The educational supply chain, applying FASB ASC topic 330. Okay, so to really understand how we built this curriculum from scratch, we're actually going to use a pretty specific lens, the US GAAP Manufacturing Inventory Model. I know it sounds a little dry, but stick with me, because it is literally the perfect metaphor for knowledge creation. In the accounting world, manufacturing inventory isn't just one big lump sum. It's tracked across three very distinct chronological layers, where physical assets just sit and accumulate value before they ever reach the consumer. Step 1 is raw materials. Those are your completely unrefined inputs. Step 2 is work in process, or WIP. Think of that as the factory floor where all the heavy lifting, labor, and overhead are applied. And then step 3 is finished goods, the completed, shiny products that are finally ready to go. We're taking those highly rigid definitions of GAAP accounting and mapping them directly onto the incredibly messy reality of creating a syllabus. So for us, our raw materials were just endless Lex Clinic office hour transcripts. Our work in process, that was the endless coordination calls, what we so fondly refer to as the dithering. And our finished goods, well, that's the polished 14-week CLEAD curriculum itself. Section 2, Raw Materials and the Chaos of Office Hours. Let's start by looking at those raw materials, the completely unrefined bulk that fed our entire educational production line. And when I say bulk, I mean absolute, unadulterated chaos. The team started with an overwhelming mountain of data. We're talking hours upon hours of totally unstructured Lex Clinic transcripts, rambling discussions, massive 1,000-page reference documents, and just unorganized piles of raw legal and computer science concepts. It was a staggering amount of data just sitting in the warehouse, and honestly, it was completely unusable in its current state. Just to give you a sense of how raw this stuff was, imagine starting with a verbatim transcript where our teammate Baba is actively wrestling with the software, saying, "I'm confused. Sorry guys, I'm learning how to use this computer still. I lost it." And somehow, you have to turn that into the clean, theoretical output it eventually became. Module 1, Runtimes and Performances. The gap between those two realities is absolutely massive, which is exactly why the next step in our supply chain is so incredibly critical. Section 3, WIP, the dithering factory and conversion costs. So how do we actually cross that gap? Well, you step onto the factory floor. In accounting, this is where you apply what's called conversion costs. For us, that meant the messy, sometimes agonizing hours spent by Kyle, Daniel, and Baba on endless coordination calls. It was literally an assembly line of intense cognitive labor. They were debating phrasing, fighting with Grammarly over specific legal terminology, staring at task boards with columns for signed, in progress, and delayed, and frantically trying to organize sticky note prompts just to figure out what concepts even belonged together in the first place. And right here is where they hit a massive roadblock on that factory floor. They had this realization that our target audience, law students and lawyers, excel at logical reasoning, but they completely lack basic programming grammar. A huge chunk of our dithering was spent just trying to figure out how to teach the concept of association versus equality. Think about it. Lawyers read English left to right, right? But in code, when you assign a variable, you actually read it right to left. That grammatical hurdle alone was a massive block in the assembly line. This crucial point of friction is perfectly captured by something Kyle Smith noted on one of those coordination calls. He said, "We'll find out we actually need to have 5 lessons before we can get to that lesson." Because of those massive comprehension gaps in basic programming grammar, the team had to backtrack significantly. They couldn't just throw up the roof. They realized they literally had to pour 5 layers of foundational concrete first. And really, that's the absolute essence of work in process, isn't it? It's refining and re-refining until the logic finally holds. Section 4, Finished Goods and the Polished Curriculum. So what happens when all that chaotic dithering, debating, and backtracking finally collapses into a structured order? You get an impressive 33-video master curriculum. Instead of long, rambling, unstructured lectures, this intense factory process successfully refined those raw inputs down into bite-sized, digestible micro-lessons that were tailored perfectly for our audience. The final product is this brilliantly structured 8-module, 14-week semester. It takes you on a complete journey. We start by shifting to a calculus mindset in Module 1, dive into the historical roots of smart contracts in Module 2, finally conquer that tricky association versus equality hurdle in Module 4, work through Boolean logic, loops, and contract chaining, all the way to preparing students for the automated Waymo era of law in Module 8. The arduous factory refinement process, it worked. We created a highly polished, finished good. Section 5. Ready for another run, the widget cascade. But here's the thing about education. A finished good is never actually the end of the story. There is this concept we'll call the widget cascade. It's the idea that the finished good of one factory systematically becomes the direct raw material input for the next factory down the line. Think of it like this. Run 1 turns unprocessed hides into finished leather. Then, in Run 2, that leather is used as the raw material to build airplane seats. And in Run 3, those seats assemble the airplanes. The value just continuously cascades downstream. Let's apply that cascade concept to our own curriculum, because this is where you see the true impact of the process. In Run 1, our production phase, the raw transcripts were refined into those finished C-Lead videos. But now, in Run 2, the education phase, those polished standalone video widgets become the raw materials that are fed directly into the students' minds, producing highly trained legal engineers. And it doesn't stop there. In Run 3, the execution phase, those very engineers become the key inputs that will build the finished goods of tomorrow, completely autonomous, self-executing legal systems. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've just shown you the intense process of building a factory to turn chaotic transcripts into 33 polished micro-lessons. But as these finished widgets leave our hands and enter the supply chain of human education, you have to wonder, how will they shape the raw potential of the next generation of legal engineers? What incredible systems will they go on to build in their run? Keep that in mind as you explore the curriculum. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.